Hello and welcome back to Fairly Odd Parents Breaking the Rules. This is Bio Enchanted and today we'll be doing Mini Timmy. A level that I find kind of frustrating.
Hey! Some privacy, please! Shut it, Shrimp! It's my job to persecute you. And there's a spider in the bath! And I guess you're scared of spiders, right? I suppose you like spiders. I guess you yucky things stick together. Don't worry, I'll rescue the spider and pop it out the window. It'll come back. This bath is so filthy, it attracts evil. I can't even look at it without getting sick. It so needs cleaning. I wish there was some way you could scrub every little nook and tiny itsy-bitsy cranny. I want it spotless. Are you done with that spider yet? Turner, you creep! Come back here and clean this bath! What has she done to me?
Timmy needs help! I feel so helpless. What kind of fairy godparent can't even answer a wish? Snap out of it! We may be able to wring enough power from our wands for one little wish! Alright, Timmy in again! Oh, thank goodness! Honey, your quick thinking saved Timmy! That suit should help in this deadly environment!
Whoa, this armor's pretty cool. I bet it has all sorts of excellent gadgets and weapons.
Well, yes, if you like cleaning, you can attach to, clean stuff.
Oh, guess. But life-saving. Thanks, guys.
Well, it's a long way back. We better get started. And keep your eyes open for wish stars. We're gonna need them.
Now this level's got the most elaborate platforming, but that's not necessarily a good thing because while it's certainly more interesting than most of the levels, this game's jumping isn't quite good enough to do it properly, really, to do it justice. It's just kind of frustrating to play, especially because it feels like the armor kind of gives Timmy a bit of a weird jump. Like, it feels like it changes the physics of his jump, even though I don't know if it really does. It might just make it more obvious that his jump's really awkward in this game. But it makes this level really frustrating to play through. One thing I will give this game, though, the second game still does much better, but this one has an okay thing with it, at least it's early on in, is that the idea of actual forward momentum in the game and the way the levels kind of fit together. For example, like, the way they flow into each other. For example, if you do this one when you unlock it, like, after doing all the first 3 levels and then you do the level, then it feels like it makes more sense because of the whole bit of dialogue Vicky has when she opens the door of, okay, playtime's over, now we've done the video game level and comic level and summer camp level, time for chores. So like it feels like this level kind of fits in a little way like that because Vicky's kind of telling him what to do this day, that sort of stuff. But that's as far as the game really goes when it comes to narrative cohesion within the levels themselves. I mean between levels, of course. And of course, this level's got the most annoying enemies as well, these germs, because their problem is they do that ridiculous attack that has a massive wind-up. It hits from a massive amount of distance away, and you have to be really close to actually hit them. Let's get up here, shall we? So they have more range than you do, so if you don't quite get them on the ball or get away from them in time, they'll hit you, and it's really frustrating. There's so many ways in this level is just the least fun to play, because in a better game, it will be fine. In a better game, it would have the most interesting platforming and be kind of neat. But in this particular game, with the way the engines are put together, it's just not fun to play. I mean, it's trying the hardest, but the design just can't. It just can't keep up because of the engine, really. The game is just not good enough to hold on to these kind of platformings without them being frustrating. Like, these jumps are very wonky and it feels like sometimes I shouldn't be making them, or sometimes it feels like I could have made them if I hadn't. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense, but I think you get the idea. And you have some interesting stars like this one, this little ring. that you have to kind of chase down. That's an interesting idea. The little, like, they have very tight motion, you have to move fairly accurately to get to it. So obviously this level's trying its hardest when it comes to actual challenge. It's just one of those things where the challenge does it a disservice because of the engine just not quite being good enough. I mean, the second game has aspects of that as well in certain boss fights that I find irritating, that sort of thing, but it's also got more thought out level design. We'll get there when we get there, though. Again, after this level we will be halfway through this game, so, you know, this is reasonably short. Yeah, this is the one level so far in the playthrough that I've actually died in as well. That will be later on, but you'll see that. I mean, the level's got some interesting visuals and things, like this weird kind of a razor bridge. I don't even know what it's supposed to really be. But it's visually, it's something that's there. It's like visually interesting. It's not like the logs in the first level that were just the same tree over and over and over again. It's at least, it's a different looking set piece for this part of the level that feels like they put thought into how it would look, even if it doesn't really make it clear what it actually is. And I kind of like the whole forest of fungus thing. That's kind of a neat visual idea. Like the fact that it was so small, not only are bacteria massive, we're actually seeing every individual cilia on every individual fungus, that kind of thing. It's an interesting idea, that. Like, we probably wouldn't be able to see anything like this if we were actually normal size, but because we're this small, we can clearly see just how bad the bath really is. And the bath does in fact have nooks and crannies, despite the fact that most baths look very smooth to the naked eye. Let's get our first main wish, shall we?
Let's just call those ropes, shall we? What's it gonna be, Timmy? I guess I want to walk ropes like that Christian Chisel and Dr. Plummet.
Which one's Dr. Plummet?
One of the Brotherhood of Ineffectual Evil. Let's just use our imagination. Guys, it isn't quite what I had in mind.
Well, it's the best we can do. You'll be able to walk across automatically. You just have to worry about which direction you're walking in. How cool is that?
I know you guys try. I guess I should just say thanks, but I won't.
So let's move on, shall we, by crossing these cilia. I mean, they're kind of being a bit grossed out by them, because of course these are just giant, like, swaths of fungus floating in the water. I mean, this level looks like it probably smells absolutely terrible, and it does a very good job of that, at least. But this is a really mildly annoying mechanic. It's very basic, but it's very easy to accidentally get too complacent and not notice he's tilting just a little bit too far and end up falling in. Or, like, not react in time and end up falling in, because sometimes it can be a little finicky. Like, sometimes it can start really moving off and like that kind of thing. Like that. It can really start wobbling sometimes if you have the stick not perfectly where it needs to be. Because if you just take a little too far in a direction, he'll just start overcorrecting in that direction like this. It's kind of a nightmare. It's kind of... It's a very easy mechanic, but it's, again, it's easy to mess up because it's easy to get kind of complacent here. And yeah, I'm just like, yeah, fine. That'll do. Let's just move on. That's good enough. I kind of like little things like the bioluminescent fungus, like that light over there. That's kind of, there's a little visual interesting stuff going on there. And it's just one of those things where because the levels take so long and it gets kind of frustrating and it's all these same shades of green, while there are some interesting aspects to the visuals, they can get very old very quickly. But the level does keep things interesting though as it goes on, so like again, the design is some of the strongest in the game, but just the actual playing of it is a little frustrating. And this mechanic takes a little too long to go as well, because of how long this particular rope is especially. But coming up is a fairly interesting little idea. Doesn't really do much with it, but it's an interesting idea. I kind of like you get little shortcuts as well, so you don't have to do the ropes anymore. I mean, you have no reason to go back, but yeah. Unless you want to go back for Crimson Chin cards. So yeah, here's why I died. That's why I had that awkward cut just then. Shortly up around... This is what makes this level a little bit interesting over here. The fact that some of these bits of ground fall underneath you. So you have to be kind of quick getting up here and nimble to know where to jump and things. But at least you do stop a little bit as well, so they give you a little time to react to what's going on before they completely fall and ruin you. It's just overall, it's an interesting idea for a mechanic, but because of the subdued music and the slightly boring sound effects, it is just how slowly they move. It's just an underwhelming mechanic. It's an idea that they had, it's just doesn't quite fill out as much as they wanted it to. And these platforms are a little weird because on these kind of hairs, so they wobble around, so you have to kind of be very careful how you move around on them. Very easy to fall off those things, or like to accidentally jump in a way that you can't actually make it to the next platform because it's moved away from you a little bit too much, or because the one you were just on moved a little bit too far forward. At least around here they do change the shade of green, which is helpful to keep things from getting really boring. I mean, it's really just a recolor of the same stuff, but yeah. I guess the idea is fresher fungus because it's getting closer to the source of the grotesqueries. So it's greener. You know what they say, the globules are always greener. The problem with the bacteria though is just how long they take to kill, or clean rather, because of just like how long it takes for the clouds to go away, and it kind of covers a massive radius in front of them, so it's really easy to get like a massive arc in front of them rather, so it's really easy to get caught in it. And because of just how short range the spray is as well, it looks like it shouldn't be as short range as it is, but because it sprays mostly down and not out, so you have to be kind of right on top of them to even hit them with it. It's a lot of the mechanics in this level are just not very fun.
Try not to think about it.
Luckily, they look nuts enough to jump on.
Yeah, here the mechanic is just a little bit dull. It's just tiny platforms that are coming up. That's not really much of a mechanic. That's kind of sort of thing. It's like a Kaizo game, like a 2D Mario kind of a ROM hack sort of thing. Where it's just jump on the tiny platforms. It's like, okay. You just need to be kind of careful how you jump because they're tiny little platforms. Big enough, but smaller than most of the platforms. And the fact that they do that little bounce means you have to kind of give it a little time just to make sure you have the right kind of height. But then again, they're really just small platforms. There's not really much to them. They don't really have much of a gimmick. Like, they don't collapse under you or anything like that. And they don't, like, bounce ridiculously and try and throw you off or anything. It's just, they're just kind of there. They're just more platforms. They might as well just be squares. They're all the only variety they really add is visual. Not even that much.
No, wait. make it without some help. Let's make a wish. I like being useful. It won't be easy.
And this wish is kind of ridiculous. We'll see that in a minute.
I got 5 stars. I can make a wish.
Kind of unintuitive.
You have to jump upwards. I'm not sure you can do it without a wish.
And I wish for super jumpy powers.
Super jumpy powers? Why didn't you say so? Ta-da! By utilizing the innate springiness of the Cosmo Plunger, patent pending, you can sail high into the air. Just jump as the plunger rises. See what I mean?
Yeah, this is kind of a bit weird. You have to basically jump as the bubbles go up. The problem is there isn't really a plunger that you can visually see. It's like, it kind of implies maybe that the plunger's up at the top of the drain, plunging the drain, and that's kind of where the bubbles are coming from. But it's just not very obvious, and it's just because of how you only have enough time to go one platform at a time, you can't kind of be cheeky with it and just kind of fly up to the top of the thing, which could be a fun way of doing this kind of mechanic. Give it a little split second extra so you can just make it to another extra platform if you're feeling daring, but they don't do that. They don't really give much to this mechanic. It's just jump when the bubbles go up. Bubbles up, you're up. It's just kind of, and it goes on a bit too long as well. Like the drain could have been half the distance up. See, as it is, it looks like that might be it, but no, there's more to the left. You have to do a bit of a leap of faith here because you can't really see it without jumping for it, which is just annoying design, honestly. Leaps of faith are just kind of a bit dumb, really, in most platformers. They're just kind of, if there's no real reason to think there's anything over there, it's like, that's just kind of mean.
We've only got 2 stars, but they're very sparkly.
But we're nearly there. At least that one we could actually see, but yeah, we're a little too, not enough horizontal there. I saw it a little too late. Oh, careful there too, don't fall off. Just gonna make sure I have plenty of room to actually maneuver within this time frame.
2 stars to find.
There we go.
Prevail.
Flickering strip lighting. We're out. We're free.
Oh, Timmy, you were so great! Wow, you're the best jumping plumber in the world!
What was that?
You know, hon, I hate to say it, but Vicky was right. This tub is filthy. Not only filthy, it's alive! Ah!
I guess I better find enough stars to make a wish before whatever made that noise finds us.
So let's explore the actual bathtub, shall we? Which is a little interesting. It's very sprawling, and it's kind of easy to get lost, although there's a lot of kind of visual milestones and things like that.
Only 1 star to find.
Like this little boat, for example.
So please find it soon.
But yeah, finding both stars can be a little tricky up here because it's kind of out of the way. But it's a really big area with a lot of little side paths to go down that are just kind of bunch of big loops. And so finding what you're trying to find is a little annoying if you don't already know roughly where to go. I kind of like the toy boat in the bath though and things, although it's kind of breaks the immersion a little bit of the whole, like, oh, you're really small enough to be a germ, because it's like, yeah, but even then the boat's a little bit too big for that to really work out. You know, it kind of breaks the scale a bit too much. It's like, if you're going to do alien landscape sort of stuff with like something so small as an alien landscape, go all the way. If you're going to have props that completely break the scale after doing a bit of, oh, you're so small you can see every individual hair on the fungus, that sort of stuff, then it's just kind of, it breaks things a little bit when it comes to the actual setting. Like, these bacteria are now very obvious that they're actually big enough to be seen by the naked eye, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I know it's a cartoon, but you know. And that's just me being a little bit overly finicky. And this is pretty much where the problem comes in, trying to find the remaining star and things. It's just such a big area. You can just go in this massive loop that only really goes towards the boss without realizing it. Because yeah, of course the boss is in that direction, but there's your other star over there. Let's head over there and grab it, shall we? Oh, there it is, actually. I was wrong. Again, this is a very sprawling area, so it's kind of hard to see what's what. I think I was actually... I saw a bacteria that had already cleaned and thought it was a star because it was the same shade of yellow. That was a little embarrassing. I think I fell for that when I was playing it as well. No, this is a little bit annoying. It tries to lure you through these little puddles, so you'll kind of slip up a little bit. But even then, it's just... there's not really much to it. You don't really slip that much. So you can just kind of ignore the puddles. Well, there's not really much of a puzzle. But now we've got all the stars, we can now go for the actual panel and activate the actual fight. And the boss fight's a bit weird, really, here.
Wish this time, sweetie. Yeah, and put some oomph in it.
I don't know what's making those sounds, but it won't stand a chance against our new senso-stink-seeking fragrance bombs.
Oh, they sound cool. In a domestic kind of way. Oh, you look so handsome when you do the housework. She always tries telling me that, but I don't believe her.
Ha! I'd like to see that thing out there frighten me now.
Yeah, this fight is kind of annoying because it's kind of hard to really avoid those shots he fires because he kind of fire in a random kind of way. It doesn't really like track towards you or anything, so you can't just move in one direction and be fine. And while he's doing this massive belt is when you're best off throwing a stink bomb at him, otherwise it just won't work. But yeah, this fight's just kind of annoying because it's not really consistent how he moves. Like there, for example, it's kind of like... because I had to wait for him to put away the actual thing, it's the actual weapon, it kind of... the fight doesn't really work as well as it wants to. Like that, for example, I should have been able to juke around those shots, but it just does not do a good enough job with the kind of movements to be able to do that, because the shots track a little bit too well and have way too big a splash damage radius. And even there, I just can't seem to win with that. Let's just quickly fire on this and get it done with, shall we?
Springtime fresh, winter wash,
And no unsightly giant germs. I haven't felt this clean in years.
and we managed to win some pages of the rules. Who'd have thought?
I know it seems kind of finicky to complain about consistency in world building in the Fairly Odd Parents game, but the second game actually kind of does it, so... not really much excuse in that one. But that's that level over now.
And we've come closer to regaining our powers. And we outwitted Vicky by doing exactly what she wanted us to do. Yay!
Here you are. I'm talking to yourself again. When is that bath going to be all done? Time for cake. The spiders are back!
And there we are, we've done with that level. So, join me next time when we go for one of the downstairs levels. I'll see you then. Goodbye.